Tonight, two monumental losses. The faithful around the world mourning the death of former Pope Benedict XVI. And we remember Barbara Walters, an institution in journalism. First, that news from the Vatican, the passing of the Pope Emeritus, who died at the age of 95. Benedict shocking the church when he resigned nearly a decade ago, the first pope to retire in 600 years. Pope Francis today praising his predecessor, thanking him for his faithful service. Reaction pouring in tonight. And what we're learning about funeral plans in the days ahead. Inez de la Catera standing by at the Vatican. Also tonight, we remember legendary and groundbreaking journalist Barbara Walters, a trailblazer and pioneer who paved the way and held the door open for women everywhere. Best known for landing the big interviews with the powerful and famous. She busted through the glass ceiling as a journalist at a time when men dominated the TV news business. Tonight, the tributes pouring in from her ABC News colleagues and beyond. Deborah Roberts with a look at Barbara's 50-year legacy as an extraordinary woman and journalist. We're tracking two New Year's Eve storms on both coasts tonight. In the Northeast, a nasty rainy forecast for the big night. Crowds in Times Square can expect to get drenched right up until midnight. And that major storm system in the west bringing heavy snow and flooding rain. Our team timing it out. New details in the Idaho College student murders. Police tonight saying we have our guy. Confident they've arrested the man responsible, but offering few details on a possible motive. We're learning more about how they tracked his car and used DNA evidence that allegedly helped identify the 28-year-old grad student. Kana Whitworth with new reporting from Idaho. And across the globe, from Australia and Dubai, millions are already ringing in the new year. Plus more from Barbara Walters in her own words.
More than being remembered, I hope that by younger women, I can help them aspire.
Reflecting on her life and career, how she hoped to be remembered.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us on this busy Saturday night, the final day of 2022. I'm Whit Johnson. Two major headlines as we come on the air: the loss of two indelible figures. Our ABC News family remembering TV icon Barbara Walters and her impact on the world of journalism. But we begin tonight with former Pope Benedict XVI passing away at the Vatican at the age of 95. Benedict made history with that stunning announcement in 2013, the first pope to retire in nearly 600 years. Benedict reaffirmed many of the church's traditional teachings and grappled with the fallout from the sex abuse scandal. Pope Francis honoring his predecessor in a prayer service today, hailing him as noble and kind. President Biden among the many paying tribute, praising his lifetime of devotion to the church. ABC's Inez de la Catera leading us off from Vatican City.
Tonight, Catholics around the world mourning Benedict XVI, the Pope Emeritus, who passed away this morning at the age of 95. Pope Francis at a New Year's Eve ceremony praising his predecessor's kindness and thanking him for his testimony of faith and prayer, especially in these final years of his retired life. Benedict shocked the church when he announced his retirement in 2013, the first pontiff to step down in nearly 600 years, citing a lack of strength of mind and body due to his age. The Pope Emeritus keeping a low profile, residing at the Vatican, giving up his famous red shoes for a quiet life, vowing to live hidden to the world. He appeared frail and in declining health, seen this summer with Francis, who said having Benedict at the Vatican was like having a wise grandfather at home to turn to for advice. In 2005, at 78, he was the fifth oldest pope elected in the church's history. Born Joseph Ratzinger, he served as the Cardinal Archbishop of Munich in the late 70s and early 80s. Just this year, Benedict cited in a damning report accusing him of mishandling cases of sexual abuse by priests when he was head of the archdiocese. The church's sexual abuse scandal plagued his papacy, and while he was the first pope to meet with victims,
indeed, I am deeply sorry for the pain and suffering the victims have endured.
He also faced intense criticism, accused of not doing enough to hold church leaders accountable for covering up abuse. But perhaps the most notable thing about his papacy was its abrupt end, a decision that could change the church forever.
One of the many gifts that Pope Benedict gave the church was now the freedom for future popes to reside.
Among the tributes pouring in from around the globe, President Biden, himself a devout Catholic, remembering Benedict as a renowned theologian with a lifetime of devotion to the church.
And here at the Vatican, makeshift memorials are starting to pop up. Over here, you can see someone's brought photos of the former pope along with candles.
Paulette Magana's family telling her she had to be at the Vatican.
Your family in El Salvador asked you to come here.
Yes.
This Franciscan brother saying Catholics around the world will unite to mourn his passing.
Just like when your grandfather dies or your father dies, only then you realize the value of family.
Inez de la Catera joining us from Vatican City. And Inez, this is uncharted territory, really, with the passing of a former pope. So what are you learning about the funeral arrangements in the days ahead?
Hey, wait, yeah, and still lots of questions here because this hasn't happened in 600 years. We know what happens when a reigning pope dies, but not when a former pope passes. In this case, the Vatican saying his body will lie in state here in St. Peter's Basilica starting on Monday. His funeral will be held on Thursday, and it will be presided over by Pope Francis, who is also expected to mention Benedict tomorrow during Mass. Whit?
Inez, thank you. Turning now to the passing of our colleague here at ABC News, Barbara Walters, a trailblazer in the TV news business, inspiring generations of journalists, breaking barriers, paving the way for countless women who followed in her footsteps. Walters' interview style unlike any other, from presidents like Richard Nixon to foreign leaders to superstar Taylor Swift. Her interview with Monica Lewinsky remains one of the most watched television news programs ever. She was able to disarm the people she interviewed and get them to share in a way no one else could. Here's ABC's Deborah Roberts with more on her extraordinary life and legacy.
Tonight, tributes pouring in from around the world for Barbara Walters, who died at age 93. So many honoring her as legendary, a trailblazer, and iconic, most noting how she shattered glass ceilings everywhere she worked. With a career that spanned more than 60 years, Barbara was the consummate interviewer.
Why did you kill John Lennon?
I thought by killing him, I would acquire his fame.
A pioneering journalist.
One group of young men kept a very special vigil. These are the honor guards who have been guarding the casket of President Kennedy.
The first woman network news anchor. She was the force who livened up daytime TV with The View.
There had not been a show with a group of people sitting together and talking unscripted. I thought it might last a year or two.
26 seasons later, The View is still going strong. Born in 1929, Barbara grew up comfortable among celebrities, her father owning a prominent New York City nightclub where the rich and famous mingled.
And I realized that celebrities were people, and I've never been in awe of them.
Barbara once saying she learned the power of TV after noticing her mentally disabled sister watching hours of shows like I Love Lucy. Barbara would go on to make her mark in the male-dominated television industry in the early 50s.
The fact that I ended up on television, I never, ever thought that would happen.
Working her way up to a job as a writer on NBC's Today Show in the 60s.
They had to have one female writer. She did the tea pouring, as I call it. She did the fashion shows. She did the celebrities.
Time again, the ambitious Barbara would find her role restricted because she was a woman. While working alongside the Today Show's Frank McGee, the network didn't allow her to ask direct questions of her guest until he had asked 4 of his own. But the tenacious Barbara found a loophole: interview guests outside the studio. It was only after Frank McGee died that Barbara Walters was named co-host.
From then on, I think up to today, the women on the morning shows are co-hosts. That's a nice legacy to have.
In 1976, Barbara made history when she jumped to ABC News as the first female anchor on an evening news broadcast, with a record-breaking $1 million salary, twice that of legendary CBS anchorman Walter Cronkite. Once again, her male anchor was less than welcoming.
I've kept time on your stories and mine tonight. You owe me 4 minutes.
That TV matchup didn't last, but Barbara, undeterred, found a niche in big interview specials. This one with Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin and Egyptian President Anwar Sadat making history as the very first time the two men had ever talked to each other.
Let us talk about it. Let us negotiate.
Good evening, I'm Hugh Downs.
And I'm Barbara Walters.
And then came 2020. And in 1997, The View. Barbara Walters smashed through barrier after barrier for women in TV and held the door open for generations of women in the business to thrive.
And we all proudly stand on your shoulders, Barbara Walters, as we honor you. Please welcome Diane Sawyer, Robin Roberts.
Many of those awe-inspired women, including myself, paying honor to the queen of journalism as she retired from The View. An emotional thank you for the path that she blazed.
This is my legacy. These are my legacy. And I thank you all of you.
Looking back, it was the interview that Barbara Walters will forever be known for. Probing, spirited, filled with audacious questions organized on her famous index cards. A keen listener, Barbara was a master at connecting with her guests. From heads of state.
I'm going to ask you a terrible question. Did you ever order anyone killed?
Нет.
To big newsmakers. This one with Monica Lewinsky is the most watched interview on television.
And you lifted the back of your jacket and you showed the President of the United States your thong underwear. Where did you get the nerve? I mean, who does that?
She could joke with American presidents.
I don't want to hurt your feelings, but this is the scroungiest Jeep I have. The upholstery is coming out. I mean, I know we have an austerity program, but this is ridiculous.
And was never afraid to ask the tough questions.
Are you sorry you didn't burn the tapes?
Yes, I think so, because they were private conversations subject to misinterpretation, as we have all seen.
Tonight, celebrities, leaders, and colleagues in the TV industry sharing their heartfelt thoughts. President Biden tweeting, Barbara Walters has always been an example of bravery and truth, breaking barriers while driving our nation forward. Her legacy will continue as an inspiration for all journalists. Joy Behar reminiscing about her co-host on The View.
She had a work ethic that you couldn't deny. She was always prepared. She was always working on her material.
And ABC's Diane Sawyer saying in a statement, Barbara Walters was the history maker right down the hall. And this from Oprah Winfrey. Without Barbara Walters, there wouldn't have been me, nor any other woman you see on evening, morning, and daily news. She was indeed a trailblazer.
Deborah Roberts joining me now. And Deborah, as we could see in those clips, all of the lives and careers she touched along the way, including yours.
Absolutely. It was hard to be in Barbara's orbit and not to want to raise your game, to not be a better journalist, a better, just a broadcaster. But one of the things I remember is, as a young woman, Barbara not only encouraging me, but also asking after me. I'll never forget when I was pregnant with my daughter and I went to her to talk about the fact that I'm going to be stepping away for a little while. And she encouraged me to say, this is such a beautiful time in your life. This is about family. Maybe that's an area I should have focused on a little more. I want to see you do that. And that was something that was very special, and people wouldn't necessarily know about Barbara Walters. What you saw in front of the camera, that was a masterclass in journalism. But behind the camera, that relentless work ethic, those notes that she was pouring over, those were the things that really made up Barbara Walters as a person, the preparation, but also the concern for women in this business.
And of course, we are thinking about her loved ones, her family, and all of us here at ABC News really feeling this loss of one of the greats in journalism. Deborah, thank you for your thoughts this evening. And stay right here, because later in this broadcast, Barbara Walters, in her own words, how she hoped to be remembered. And then please join us on Sunday for a 2-hour special edition of 2020 Our Barbara at 8 p.m. for more on the broadcast legend. Next tonight here, the weather threats impacting New Year's Eve celebrations. Revelers enduring the rain in New York's Times Square as they wait to ring in the new year. Severe storms also taking aim out west. Heavy rain causing flooding and road closures in California's Bay Area. So let's get right to Jeff Smith from our New York station WABC with the national picture. Jeff, good evening.
Whit, I do not envy those revelers in Times Square. Very damp out here. Check out that rainfall that we have over the Northeast. Yes, the steadiest rain will be over around midnight. A little bit too little, too late. A lot of people are going to be getting wet. Speaking of wet, check out what's going on out west. San Francisco, you have highways underwater due to flooding. That's translating into 3+ feet of snow in parts of the Sierra and the Rockies. And there could be blizzard conditions from Denver all the way up into the high plains. At the same time, a severe weather threat developing over the southern states as we head into the day Monday. Could be tornadoes, damaging wind, and large hail from Lufkin to Shreveport all the way up to Little Rock. Whit.
All right, Jeff, thank you. Now to the new details on the University of Idaho murders and the suspect under arrest. Police saying today that they believe Brian Kohberger acted alone and don't anticipate additional arrests. The 28-year-old graduate student was taken into custody yesterday in Pennsylvania, thousands of miles from the crime scene, now facing 4 counts of first-degree murder. ABC's Kana Whitworth back on this tonight from Moscow, Idaho.
Tonight, police in Moscow confident the only person responsible in the heinous murders of those 4 college students is in custody.
We believe we have our guy, the one that committed these murders.
The alleged killer, 28-year-old Brian Kohberger. Chief James Fry confirming to ABC News this white Hyundai Elantra seen in surveillance video from a nearby gas station the night of the murders belongs to Kohberger, saying he was the only person inside. The car now in police custody after being taken from Kohberger's parents' home in Pennsylvania. Law enforcement sources saying police used DNA technology to help track down Kohberger 2,500 miles away.
What was it like to start zeroing in on Brian Kohberger?
You know, it's stressful. You know that this individual is out there somewhere. We knew that there was going to be an arrest made in Pennsylvania. That's still, even though we're here, it's stressful here.
Kohberger living just 10 miles from the crime scene in Pullman, Washington, where he had been working towards his PhD in criminology at Washington State.
To find out it was our neighbor, it was like very horrific.
Those who knew the alleged murderer left stunned by his arrest.
It was just a shock. He was always nice to me. Maybe not to other people.
Now, Whit, authorities have not released any information on a possible motive or connection between Kohberger and the victims. But Kohberger's lawyer saying that he wishes to be quickly brought back here to Idaho so that he may be exonerated. Now, once he appears here in court, that official arrest affidavit will be unsealed, and we will learn a lot more about the prosecution's case against him. Whit.
Kana Whitworth, our thanks to you tonight. We are just hours away from ushering in 2023, but in other parts of the world, countries are already ringing in the new year. Fireworks lit up the night sky of Sydney, Australia, and Hong Kong, celebrating with a light show at the Victoria Harbour. In Dubai, a spectacular display of lights and fireworks shooting from the world's tallest building. And there is much more ahead on World News Tonight this Saturday. Russia launching devastating aerial attacks on Ukraine, one official calling it terror on New Year's Eve. Stay with us. Next tonight, the war in Ukraine and Russia ending the year with terror. A massive missile attack on New Year's Eve causing widespread destruction. Ukrainian officials tonight saying they shot down 12 of 20 Russian missiles fired, but at least 1 person was killed and several buildings in Kyiv were damaged. President Zelensky addressing the Russians directly today, saying President Putin is, quote, burning their country and their future. When we come back here tonight, the Mega Millions jackpot closing in on $1 billion. To the index now, the Mega Millions jackpot is inching closer to $1 billion after no winning tickets in last night's drawing. The prize has grown to $785 million. The next drawing is in the new year, Tuesday night. The odds of winning, about 1 in 300 million. When we come back, Barbara Walters, in her own words, how she wants to be remembered. Finally tonight, Barbara Walters, in her own words, her life, her career, and how she tackled the big interview.
Take 3. Cue Barbara.
Good evening. I'd like to say they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. But here was my chance, historic, they told me, to be the first female co-anchor of a network news program. In those days, nobody thought it was possible. The news business was a man's business. I was criticized for doing specials that had people in the news along with celebrities. You can't do both, but people like them. The first thing I tell anybody who's going to be doing interviews is homework. I do so much homework. I know more about the person than he or she does about himself.
I don't know when I talked about that. How did you find that out?
When I do an interview, I want a strong beginning and a strong ending. In order to get that strong ending, I often ask, finish this sentence for me. Finish this sentence for me. Will Ferrell is...
funny, but honest and
devilishly handsome?
The View has shown that women can be together and enjoy each other and have the kind of conversations that you may have in the morning with a girlfriend. And here in The View, I could be funny. I had women whom I could joke with.
I always think of you not just as a friend or a sister, but as a lover.
And I could show good, better, and different my personality. I want to be remembered by my daughter as a good and loving mother. I want to be remembered by my friends as somebody who was loyal. I want to be remembered in television, maybe as a creator, maybe as a good newswoman. No, more than being remembered, I hope that by younger women, I can help them aspire.
Our hearts are heavy here at ABC News, but we know her legacy lives in all of us, and for that, we are truly grateful.